It's not an understatement to say that Game of Thrones has several moments that are considered the greatest in all of television history. Through its roller coaster of events, the audience is hit time and time again with the whole collage of emotions. Still, there's no greater emotion this series forces upon you more than that of complete devastation. While this feeling lurks in the shadows of the entire show, there's one particular episode, one specific moment, that mercilessly struck the hearts of every Game of Thrones fan more than any other. I'm of course talking about the Red Wedding.
The wine will flow red, and the music will play loud, and we'll put this mess behind us.
The Red Wedding is without a doubt my favorite moment, not only in Game of Thrones, but in all of television. It's in the top 10 highest rated television episodes of all time on IMDb, and sits in the #1 spot among episodes in the series. My admiration for this episode is due greatly to my love for the character of Robb Stark, who is by far my favorite in the entire series. Robb stands out among so many incredible characters in this show because he feels so uniquely righteous and morally superior in this cruelly sadistic world. He's truly a diamond in the rough. While there are a handful of other characters who feel like the ultimate good guy or person to root for, Robb has the added weight of carrying on the Stark legacy, which thus far has been dragged through the mud over and over again. In many ways, Robb is the evolution of Eddard Stark for the viewer. Robb clearly portrays qualities similar to Ned and feels like a natural succession to his father. Throughout Season 1, we are led to believe that Ned is the main protagonist and the Stark family is the house we should cheer for. Ned continuously shows he values honor and doing the right thing, which makes him a true outlier in Westeros, especially given his power and position. So when his moral compass culminates in his demise, the audience is left utterly shocked and unsure where to go from here. In comes the young wolf, Robb Stark, who is named King of the North by his people. He rises to leadership, vowing to obtain justice for the crimes against his family, and to retrieve his sisters from Lannister custody. It feels like the show is heading towards an eventual large-scale battle between the two houses, with Robb and Tywin going head-to-head. At its core, this show is about the feud between the Lannisters and the Starks, so this battle only feels natural. Robb is the successor to all that Ned stood for, and we assume now that where Ned failed, Robb will succeed and eliminate the treacherous Lannisters, once and for all. Now, if this were any other author or any other story, that would more than likely be the case. But this is Game of Thrones, where the cunning survive and the naive will never know what hit them. It's not as simple as good guy and bad guy line up with their armies in a field and start going at it. No, Game of Thrones is much more nuanced than that. Throughout his journey as King of the North, Robb was winning battle after battle. He seemed unstoppable after rallying the North behind his cause, capturing Jaime Lannister and allying with the Freys and Tullys to gain the support of the Riverlands. Robb looked like the favorite to win the War of Five Kings, seeing as Renly was murdered and Stannis was defeated at the Battle of Blackwater. But things started to fall apart pretty quickly. Theon Greyjoy betrayed Robb, his best friend, by capturing Winterfell and declaring himself Lord. In the books, the events of the sack of Winterfell play out a little differently. Ramsay Snow is actually present and is the one who destroyed the castle, slaughtered its people, and killed Roderick Cassel. But Theon is blamed for that. However, Theon does kill those two boys and says they are Bran and Rickon, so his reputation is pretty much in the dirt. Robb is distracted by this attack on his home, and initially considers retreating to secure its safety, but Roose Bolton assures him that Ramsay has led the surviving citizens of Winterfell to the Dreadfort, and has also taken Theon hostage. We as the reader know that Ramsay was much more destructive to Winterfell than Theon was. Ramsay's part in this event alludes to the possible treachery of the Boltons, but perhaps not all Boltons are made the same, similar to how Tyrion and Cersei are much different from each other. A massive blow was made to the Stark cause when Robb's mother, Lady Catelyn Stark, released Jaime Lannister, hoping he would uphold his end of the bargain and free Sansa and Arya from Lannister custody. I've got to be honest, this is one of the rare moments in the series where I think this was pretty stupid writing. I'm talking about the books, by the way, not the show. We all know there was stupid writing there. I don't see how Catelyn thought that this was a logical solution to her problem, but I suppose the answer is that she wasn't thinking logically. She was probably overcome with grief and saw the faint chance that she could free her daughters from this trade. Unfortunately, losing Lannister's heir and Tywin's most valued treasure was the single most significant blow Robb could have taken. But finally, we come to the most fantastic mistake that Robb Stark made in his reign of king, betraying Walder Frey. Robb Stark vowed to marry one of the Frey daughters in exchange for passage over the twins. But along the way, Robb broke his betrothal and married a different woman. In the show, her name is Talissa, a medic from Valentis, whom Robb falls head over heels for. But in the books, Robb actually marries a woman named Jane Westerling, However, he doesn't do this out of love, except maybe he did love her by the end, who knows. His army actually captured the Craig, the castle owned by the Westerlings. Jane helped comfort Robb while dealing with the grief that his brothers were supposedly dead. The two end up sleeping together, and Robb decides to marry Jane to protect her honor after taking her virginity. House Westerling resides in the Westerlands, meaning that they are vassals to the Lannisters. Lord Tywin learns of this marriage between the Westerlings and the Starks, which certainly encouraged a harsher wrath towards them. This feels like an excellent time to bring up an infamous story and song in the world of Westeros that any diehard fan surely knows. The Rains of Castamere, which is played during the wedding sequence. The Rains of Castamere is a song representing the ruthless slaughter of House Rain by Tywin Lannister. When Tywin was still just heir to Casterly Rock, House Rain and Harth Tarbeck raised a rebellion against their liege lord, Lord Titus Lannister, Tywin's father. Tywin took this very seriously and raised a massive army against the two houses. He made quick work against them and entirely eliminated the line of House Rain out of existence. House Rain has the sigil of a red lion, similar to the Lannisters' golden lion. This song is now a sort of anthem for Lannisters to convey to all who may oppose them of the fate they will surely receive. This song relates to House Westerling because they are now actively betraying their liege lord, just like House Rain, so Tywin must make a statement to keep up the powerful image of the Lannisters. Roose Bolton was another critical player in the Red Wedding. Being the right-hand man to Robb throughout his campaign, we are led to trust him despite his chilling and uneasy demeanor. But Roose does a few things that foreshadows his eventual betrayal. For starters, he frees Jaime Lannister and sends him to King's Landing when his men capture him, even though we know Robb's army is looking for him. Also, in the books, Arya serves as his cupbearer and overhears his conversations. While there aren't any moments of Roose explicitly outlining his intentions, we see him frequently meeting with Frey retainers more than any of the Northern Lords, and he is also completely fine with Ramsay Snow's actions in the North. From his time at Harrenhal, it's clear that Roose is a brutal and cruel man, but at the end of the day, we figure he can't be that bad because he is allied with Robb. Walder Frey's introduction in the show was extremely noteworthy. They did a great job setting up his character and displayed his values early on. He is an old, angry, foul-mouthed man who doesn't hold his tongue. He doesn't like being looked down upon, so he sees the chance to marry one of his daughters to King Robb as an excellent opportunity for personal glory. Catelyn Stark makes it clear that he is not a man to be trifled with. The show also really hammers home the guest rights before the Red Wedding, which states that a guest is safe from harm inside someone's home after sharing a meal. This right is completely bound by honor, of course, and we've seen repeatedly thus far that not everyone cares about their honor. Once Robb's group receives these guest rights, we naively feel a sense of safety despite the numerous lessons we've learned so far in the show. Now let's talk about the event itself. After Edmure and Rosalind are carried off for the bedding ceremony, Catelyn notices the Freys lock the door behind them. She has been very vocal about her distrust for Walder Frey, so it's understandable that she feels uneasy despite everything seeming to go smoothly. But then the band starts playing the Lannister anthem, The Rains of Castamere, and Catelyn becomes even more distressed. Walder Frey gives a toast to Robb Stark, and the show finally begins. Roose Bolton stares very ominously at Catelyn, and realization finally sinks in of their plot. In the blink of an eye, this joyous celebration becomes an absolute massacre before we can even catch our breath. What adds salt to the wound is that Arya was at the front gates and had finally made it to her family after her entire journey. This little girl stands witness to her entire brother's army being murdered. Robb stands up from his wounds and holds his wife's body with so much pain in his eyes. I really feel for Robb in this moment. Here, the great and commanding King Robb returns to the young boy who he was at the beginning of the journey. Catelyn Stark makes a last-ditch effort to save her son, and we can just see the immense sorrow she's going through right now. This has to be the worst possible situation for a mother to go through. I know a lot of people dislike Catelyn, but to me, she's an incredible character with excellent qualities and real flaws. Her intense passion for her family is one of the best parts about her that I'll always love her for. Like a little boy who's given up the strong act he's had to put on for months. Robb looks at his mother one last time with the expression that says, "Mom, I don't know what to do. Help me." Roose Bolton walks up, reveals the Lannisters were behind it all, and stabs Robb to death. Catelyn Stark simply loses the will to live here. This is gut-wrenching to watch as you can truly see the life just leave her eyes. Everything she has ever cared about is completely lost. The strong-willed, intelligent, and caring woman we've known throughout the series is nothing left to fight for. In the books, Catelyn was an even more important character than she is in the show. We witness all of Robb's plotlines through her POV chapters, and she was super pivotal in the events of Book 1 as well. So not only are we losing the King of the North, but also this character we've lived in the mind of for so long. In the book, she is revived through the Lord of Light as Lady Stoneheart, but this is the end of her story in the show. The Starks have seemingly been absolutely defeated at this point. This is why I love this series so much. There is not a single other story I've ever experienced that has the balls to kill off the main character and protagonist of the show in season 1, clearly set up his son as the successor and the one to set everything right, then kill him off in the middle of the series with even more brutality. It's not enough to just kill off your characters and that simply makes it good. It's because of the logic behind the events that led them to be murdered. Robb puts his trust in Walder, Frey, and Roose Bolton far too heavily. George R.R. Martin has stayed consistent with his writing throughout the series, and that the good guy doesn't just win because he is the good guy. That's not how the real world works. In this instance, I'm truly devastated to see my favorite character be killed off so gruesomely, but I love it at the same time because nothing I've ever experienced has the balls and writing ability to pull off something this shocking effectively. In other stories, the main protagonist gets torn down, beaten, or betrayed, but they almost always survive, so the audience can see them rebuild themselves and come out on top at the end. We've been conditioned to expect this in every story, that sometimes we forget life doesn't always work out in the end. While I know that can be frustrating for some viewers, you have to respect the authenticity of the world that George R.R. Martin has created. Things like this create real stakes and pressure for the characters, so when they succeed, we know how amazing that is. It makes the wins hit that much harder. Now I will say, this does put a lot of pressure on George to create a satisfying ending for the story. We can't have constant dread and losses without something to show for it. At least I don't want that. Obviously, I don't expect and would not want him to go back on his principles to create a fairy tale happy ending, but I do need some wins along the way. A bittersweet conclusion at the very least. I'm sure this, along with the countless other plot lines that George has to craft satisfying endings for, is why The Winds of Winter and A Dream of Spring have taken so long to release. Perhaps they never will. A subpar ending may have people wondering if massive events like the Red Wedding or Tyrion's trial were too cataclysmic and derailed the story far too much. I find that hard to believe, but you never know. All in all, the Red Wedding is truly a fantastic moment in the Game of Thrones series and probably my favorite moment in any fiction. What do you think about the Red Wedding? Were there any points I missed in this discussion? Let me know in the comments anything you'd like to add. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.